Peanut butter has a complex history, with some familiar faces and many new ones. The delicious substance, seemingly invented by multiple people over the course of over half a century, had humble beginnings as a protein substitute, but would grow into an American favorite with around 700 million pounds being sold each year, approximately 3 pounds per person. From its small beginnings to its wartime popularity, we'll go over all of it and more as we learn something new. When trying to determine who exactly came up with the peanut butter we see today, we have to look at the 5 people who had claims to the peanut butter idea, but one we can rule out immediately, and that would be George Washington Carver, the man who was born into slavery and would go on to become one of the most influential peanut promoters in American history. It's common to see him mistakenly referred to as the inventor of peanut butter because he made a ton of progress in peanut advancement, eventually developing more than 300 new uses for peanuts, including glue, insecticide, and axle grease. But it's pretty clear that he didn't have any part in the creation of peanut butter itself. He is still important in this story, however, as his dedication to the peanut would help skyrocket its popularity throughout America in the late 1800s. As for others who might have a claim to the peanut butter's beginnings, one historian, Eleanor Ross Grants, claims a woman from New York named Rose Davis started making peanut butter out of her home as early as the 1840s, after her son reported seeing women in Cuba grind up peanuts into a pulp and smear it onto bread. However, since Rose never sold this early form of peanut butter, nor took out a patent on the process, she is rarely ever considered its inventor, and there is little known about the Cubans who used a similar process. On the other hand, a Canadian chemist named Marcellus Edson did file a US patent in 1884 for what he called peanut candy, essentially a flavored paste that used roasted peanuts ground up into a semi-fluid product, which he claimed had the consistency of lard. Despite having a patent, however, it doesn't seem like Edson ever did anything with the patent, never selling his peanut candy to anyone. Someone who did try and sell something that somewhat resembled peanut butter was George Bale, a St. Louis businessman who began packaging and selling a peanut-based substance through his food manufacturing company in 1890. It's believed that the idea was born out of a collaboration with a doctor who had been seeking a way for his patients who were unable to chew meat to ingest protein. Bale has some of the stronger evidence of being its inventor, especially since he also ran advertisements much later in the early 1920s proclaiming his company to be the original manufacturers of peanut butter, and his cans of peanut butter would later have labels with similar claims. But with that being said, one of the most commonly accepted inventors is none other than Dr. John Harvey Kellogg, a man you might recognize from my video on how cereal got its start, along with the Kellogg brand. In 1896, Kellogg received a patent for a technique he developed for making peanut butter for his patients at his sanatorium, who needed a source of protein in their vegetarian diets. But similarly to his creation of cereal, it was often his younger brother that dealt with the brunt of the work, bringing in the peanuts, steaming them, and grinding them into a paste himself. As John Harvey Kellogg traveled the country giving lectures on the health benefits of peanut butter, his brother was training an employee on how to make the peanut butter in large quantities. That employee, John Lambert, would leave the Kellogg Sanatorium in 1896 and found a company that developed and manufactured industrial-strength peanut grinding machines. However, it's unclear if Lambert ever took a patent out on these machines, especially given that in 1903, a man named Ambrose Straub was granted his patent for industrial manufacturing of peanut butter. Before either of these two had gone into business, making peanut butter largely consisted of using a mortar and pestle before putting the substance through a meat grinder. But even then, it was hard to achieve a uniform consistency. By the time the 1904 World's Fair arrived in St. Louis, Missouri, a concession stand run by C.H. Sumner was selling peanut butter to the masses, raking in the equivalent of $165,000 in today's money over the course of the event. During that same year, the Beechnut Packing Company became the first to achieve nationwide distribution, and it was only a matter of time before more joined in. As a mass invasion of boll weevils invaded the farms of the southern United States, destroying cotton crops that the farmers had depended on for decades, many turned to peanuts as replacements, at the recommendation of none other than George Washington Carver. By 1907, a whopping 34 million pounds of peanut butter were produced, up from just 2 million in 1899. But there was a problem. peanut butter was largely constrained as a local product because it was unable to travel well. You see, whenever peanut butter was shipped anywhere, the oil within would separate out, and once it did, the product would quickly spoil. Manufacturers who would sell to local grocers would often advise them to have someone frequently stir the supply in tubs with a wooden paddle to keep it from separating. And that's where California food executive Joseph Rosefield came in. He knew that there would be a huge market for peanut butter out west if he could just solve the separation problem, and he ended up fixing it by adding hydrogenated vegetable oil, naming his new form of peanut butter Skippy, likely named after a popular comic strip of the time that he enjoyed. But when he tried to trademark his company, he ran into an issue of his own. The Skippy Skinner comic strip was extraordinarily popular at the time, and its creator claimed that Rosefield was taking advantage of his creation to prop up his new peanut butter business, despite there being no association between the two. The creator, Peter Crosby, would enter into a decades-long legal battle over its name and design, but this would end up working out in the peanut butter company's favor, as Crosby began to speak out against then-President FDR, calling him a power-hungry tyrant and closeted communist at around the same time FDR was calling for the Americans to surrender their gold to the government, which you can see in my video covering the topic here. His political views hurt his comic sales, and an IRS judgment against him meant he was overloaded with bills, and after his wife left him with their children, he was left penniless and alone, leaving Rosefield to win full trademark rights to the Skippy name, allowing him a chance to take part in the peanut butter boom. As early as World War I, the United States government had been encouraging protein alternatives to meat as the war constrained domestic supplies. Government pamphlets at the time promoted meatless Mondays to support the war effort, with peanut-based foods being high up on the list of alternatives. In World War II, 10 cans of Skippy's hydrogenated peanut butter were even shipped to soldiers overseas, while rationing back in the United States left Americans turning back to peanuts as well. In fact, it's believed that during World War II, the United States military became some of the first to try combining the energy-efficient peanut butter with the sweet taste of grape jelly, with the combination being featured in ration menus. From there, soldiers would bring the practice of combining the two back home with them as they returned home from war. The United States would quickly come to love peanut butter as a food source even when not at war. And today, according to the National Peanut Board, about 94% of American homes have at least one jar of peanut butter. That's more homes than have internet. And although there's some speculation about who really invented peanut butter first, the truth is, we'll never really know. As for hundreds of years before any of the inventors discussed in this video were born, the Inca were grinding peanuts into a paste themselves. But with anything, each form of peanut butter made was an improvement on the last, whether it was an improvement to taste, production, or how long it could last. Thank you for watching Learn Something New. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing it. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next one.